Did Crusaders really fight zombies? I know it sounds like a plot twist from a fantasy novel, but what if I told you it might be true? We'll also venture into the eerie world of Haitian Voodoo to unravel the real-life account of a man who claims to have been a zombie. And if that's not enough, we'll expose a Cold War secret project that aimed to create zombie super soldiers. Here at Two Tricks, One Treat, we dive into the most mind-bending stories from history, folklore, and sometimes straight-up imagination. Here's the twist. Only one of these zombie tales is true. The other two are pure fiction. Can you figure out which one is real? If you're a fan of the strange, paranormal, and mysterious, you've come to the right place. We release a new video every day exploring these very topics. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button to join us on this journey. Now, let's begin. Story 1: The Culling of Veritas. In the year 1099, the First Crusade was in full swing, its momentum seemingly unstoppable as it carved a path through the Holy Land. However, a shadowy plague had begun to spread in the smaller towns and cities that lay in the wake of the Crusaders' march. Many saw it as a sign of the devil himself attempting to halt the righteous advance of Christendom. This was no ordinary sickness. It twisted the minds of those it infected, turning them into violent, unrecognizable husks of their former selves. Friends attacked friends, children turned against their parents, and even local officials were not spared from the madness. It was as if the very fabric of society had unraveled, leaving chaos and horror in its wake. In this dark backdrop, the Crusaders, led by Sir Alaric de Montfort, arrived in the town of Veritas, seeking refuge and supplies, but found something far more sinister. Sir Alaric de Montfort was a seasoned warrior, a man of deep faith and unyielding conviction. He had fought in numerous battles, always guided by his belief that he was an instrument of divine will. His reputation for merciless efficiency was only rivaled by his commitment to the Crusade's holy mission. Baldwin, his second-in-command, was a scholar before he took up the sword. He had studied theology and philosophy, and his strategic mind had saved the Crusaders more than once. However, his intellectual disposition often put him at odds with the more zealous members of the army, including Sir Alaric. He questioned everything, even the righteousness of their cause, but his loyalty to his comrades was never in doubt. Geoffrey, the youngest among the leaders, was a charismatic and passionate knight. He had joined the crusade fueled by youthful idealism and a desire for glory. His father had been a knight, and he had grown up on tales of valor and heroism. However, the grim realities of war had started to chip away at his naivety, leaving him increasingly conflicted. These three men, each shaped by their pasts and driven by their own inner demons, were about to face a challenge unlike any they had encountered before, a challenge that would test not just their skills in battle but the very core of their beliefs and moralities. As they rode into Veritas, the atmosphere was palpable with dread, like a thick fog that clung to everything. The streets, once bustling with life, were now a haunting tableau of despair. Doors were ajar, belongings scattered, as if people had fled their homes in a frantic rush. The stench of rotting flesh and decay filled the air, making even the most hardened warriors among them gag. The few townspeople they did encounter were unsettling to behold. Their eyes were hollow, their faces twisted in grotesque expressions. Some wandered aimlessly, mumbling incoherently, while others seemed to be driven by a more sinister purpose, lunging at the Crusaders with a feral rage. It was as if their very souls had been ripped from them, leaving behind only a shell driven by an insatiable hunger. But what chilled them to the bone were the children. Tiny figures that should have been playing and laughing were instead gnawing on what appeared to be human remains. Mothers cradled lifeless infants, their eyes devoid of all emotion, as if the maternal instinct had been corrupted into something monstrous. As they moved deeper into the town, it became increasingly clear that Veritas had succumbed to the same mysterious plague that had been reported in other towns and cities. There was no makeshift altar, no clear sign of what had unleashed this horror, only the whispered consensus among the Crusaders that this must be the work of the devil himself, a malevolent force corrupting the land to thwart the holy mission of the crusade. Sir Alaric convened a hasty council with his lieutenants. "We have no choice," he declared, his voice tinged with regret. "If we allow this plague to spread, it could jeopardize the entire crusade and countless innocent lives. "We must cull the town." His decision was met with a mixture of resolve and horror. Some knights, like Sir Geoffrey, argued that it was an abomination to slaughter innocents. Others, like Sir Baldwin, insisted that it was a necessary evil. "We took an oath to protect Christendom," Sir Baldwin said, his eyes steely. "If this is the price we must pay, then so be it." The debate was cut short when a blood-curdling scream echoed through the town. A group of zombies had attacked one of their own. The reality of the situation had become impossible to ignore. Sir Alaric drew his sword. "May God forgive us for what we are about to do," he muttered, leading his men into the heart of Veritas. The culling was a gruesome affair. Men, women, and even children were cut down as the Crusaders moved through the town, their faces masks of grim determination. Every so often, one of the knights would pause, as if questioning the morality of their actions. But the urgency of their mission drove them forward. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Veritas was reduced to a smoldering ruin, its inhabitants purged in a baptism of fire and steel. The knights who had carried out the culling were forever changed, their souls burdened by the weight of their actions. Sir Geoffrey, who had argued against the culling, left the crusade soon after, his spirit broken. Sir Baldwin continued to fight, but carried the scars of Veritas with him until his dying day. As for Sir Alaric, he returned to the crusade, haunted by the events at Veritas, but resolute in his belief that he had made the necessary choice. Yet the questions remained, echoing in the depths of his soul. Had they done the right thing? Was the culling a justifiable act to prevent a greater evil? Or had they become monsters in the name of righteousness? The annals of history would remember the Crusaders as heroes and villains, but the Culling of Veritas remained a dark chapter, a grim testament to the terrible choices that men must make in times of desperation. In a startling revelation, researchers in the early 2000s came across historical documents that provided new insights into the disease that had struck Veritas. With the advancements in medical science and technology, they were able to determine that the symptoms and behaviors described closely resembled an aggressive form of rabies rather than any supernatural affliction. The Crusaders, in their ignorance and fear, had slaughtered an entire town afflicted by a disease they could not understand. And so, the dark tale of Veritas serves as a grim reminder of the dangers of ignorance and the horrifying consequences that can arise when fear and superstition guide our actions. Story 2: The Haitian Zombie. In the cultural tapestry of Haiti, zombies hold a unique and haunting place, their existence deeply rooted in the practices and beliefs of Voodoo. Unlike the flesh-eating monsters popularized by Western cinema, Haitian zombies are not marauding creatures. Instead, they are said to be unfortunate souls reanimated through dark sorcery and controlled by a boker, a practitioner of Voodoo with knowledge of the darker arts. They become thralls, stripped of will and individuality, and doomed to a life, or perhaps an existence, of servitude. This eerie realm of Haitian folklore may seem like the stuff of legends and bedtime stories designed to keep children awake at night, but for Clairvius Narcisse, it was anything but a mere tale. Clairvius claimed to have lived this nightmare not for a night, a week, or even a year, but for nearly 2 decades. He vanished from his known life, only to reappear years later with a story that not only defied explanation, but also challenged the very understanding of life and death. Clairvius Narcisse was born in rural Haiti, in a small village where life was dictated by the seasons, and the line between superstition and reality was often blurred. Yet in many ways his upbringing was remarkably unremarkable. He helped his family on the farm, went to local gatherings, and participated in the religious practices of his community, just like anyone else. His name was known but not whispered. He was ordinary, one face among many in a place where everyone knew everyone else. That very ordinariness made what happened to him in 1962 all the more shocking. Clairvius fell gravely ill, his body racked by fever, intense physical pain, and inexplicable fatigue. The local doctors were baffled, unable to determine the cause of his rapidly declining health. Soon, Clairvius found himself confined to a bed, barely able to speak or move, his life ebbing away in shrouded mystery. Finally, the unthinkable happened. Clairvius Narcisse was pronounced dead. His body lay still, Unresponsive to the touch or any form of medical intervention, the village was filled with sorrow and disbelief. An ordinary man, leading an ordinary life, had met an extraordinary end. Preparations were made quickly, adhering to local customs. Wrapped in a shroud, his body was placed in a wooden coffin, and a small, solemn procession led him to his final resting place. As the dirt was thrown onto the casket, mourners said their goodbyes, sealing Clervius Narcissus' fate, or so they thought. For many, that would be the end of the story, a life tragically cut short. But for Clervius, it was just the beginning of an ordeal that defied the laws of nature, a journey into a twilight realm between life and death. Clervius Narcissus lay in his wooden coffin, aware but unable to move, unable to cry out. Though pronounced dead, his mind was very much alive, imprisoned in a paralyzed body. Above him, the muffled sobs of his family filled the air, a mournful melody that he would carry in his memory for the rest of his life, or what would become of it. In the dead of night, a few days after his burial, the ground above him stirred. Shovels pierced the earth, each thump echoing in the small, confined space where he lay. The coffin lid was pried open, revealing the face of a Bokor, eyes aglow with a darkness that seemed to swallow the moonlight. Accompanying the Bokor were several men, their faces obscured by the shadows. Together they lifted Clervius out of his tomb as if exhuming a dreadful secret buried deep within the Haitian soil. What followed was a ritual that defied both reason and the laws of nature. Herbs, potions, and incantations, all part of a dark tapestry of voodoo sorcery, were employed to complete his transformation into a creature of servitude. The specifics of this unholy ceremony remain veiled in mystery, whispered only in hushed conversations among those who dare to speak of such things. Thus Clervius began his life anew, or perhaps it would be more accurate to say his existence, for what he endured could scarcely be called a life. He was transported to a remote sugar plantation where he was put to work alongside others like him, men and women with hollow eyes and robotic movements, the living embodiments of voodoo myths about zombies. Their work in the cane fields was backbreaking, yet no one complained, no one rested, and no one dared to dream of escape. They were shells of humans, their spirits crushed, their free will extinguished. According to the lore that explained their tragic condition, they were controlled through potent spells by the Bokor, who had enslaved them, the same sorcerer who had dug him from his grave and condemned him to this purgatorial existence. One day, the unthinkable happened. Whispers of the Bokor's death rippled through the plantation, unsettling the eerie calm that typically reigned. Clervius felt something shift inside him, a veil lifting, a lock breaking open. For the first time in years, a flicker of consciousness stirred, awakening slivers of memories and fragments of his former self. The other men and women laboring beside him seemed to awaken as well. Confused, disoriented, but now united by a newfound awareness, they seemed to collectively realize that the invisible chains binding them had weakened, if not entirely broken. It was said that a Bokor's death would release those under his spell, and in this rare instance, the lore proved true. Seizing the opportunity, Clervius and a small group made their way out of the fields under the cover of darkness. The journey back to his village was long and treacherous, but every step took him closer to reclaiming his lost life. All he carried with him were the clothes on his back and an indomitable will that had survived years of enslavement. When Clervius finally arrived at his hometown, the reception was one of incredulity and astonishment. People gazed upon him as if he were a ghost, unable to reconcile the man standing before them with the memory of the man who had been buried 18 years prior. Whispers of his impossible return spread like wildfire, drawing the attention of not just his neighbors and relatives, but journalists and anthropologists as well. One such researcher was Wade Davis, an ethnobotanist intrigued by Clervius's account. His interviews and subsequent examinations sought to demystify the ingredients used in the zombification process. Davis claimed to have identified the mysterious zombie powder, a controversial discovery that only deepened the intrigue surrounding Clervius Narcissus' inexplicable life journey. Story 3, Project Icarus. The Cold War, a period stretching from the late 1940s to the early 1990s, was a time of global tension, espionage, and covert operations. The United States and the Soviet Union, two superpowers with ideologically opposing views, were locked in a silent battle for supremacy. The Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, was at the forefront of America's efforts to gain an upper hand, engaging in a myriad of clandestine activities that ranged from intelligence gathering to attempts at regime change. But among the hidden records of covert operations and secret schemes, one name stands out, whispered only in the most confidential of conversations: Project Icarus. Recently leaked documents have shed light on this chilling program, revealing a plot so audacious it could easily be dismissed as the stuff of science fiction. Project Icarus aimed to create the ultimate super soldier spies, not through rigorous training or advanced technology, but by abducting Russian citizens and erasing their very identities. And so begins the tale of Project Icarus, a story that delves into the depths of human ethics, the boundaries of scientific exploration, and the grim realities of what governments are willing to do in the name of national security. In the shadows of bustling European cities, quiet South American towns, and even the neon-lit streets of Tokyo, Russian citizens found themselves ensnared in a web of intrigue and abduction. These were not random kidnappings. Each individual was carefully selected based on a set of criteria that made them invaluable to the CIA's audacious project. Engineers, scientists, linguists, and even artists, people whose skills could be weaponized in the intelligence war against the USSR, were targeted. The CIA used a variety of methods to capture these individuals. Some were lured under the guise of job opportunities or academic fellowships, while others were simply snatched off the streets, drugged, and transported to a secret facility. The common thread among them was their nationality and the unique set of skills they possessed, attributes that Project Icarus aimed to exploit for the United States' advantage. Once abducted, the individuals were taken to a clandestine facility, the location of which remains undisclosed even in the leaked documents. Here they were subjected to a process straight out of a science fiction novel: cryo-freezing. Using a highly experimental technology, the subjects were put into a state of suspended animation. Their body temperatures were lowered to extreme levels, effectively halting all metabolic processes, including brain activity. The rationale behind this chilling method was twofold. First, the cryo-freezing process was believed to erase or at least severely muddle the memories of the subjects, making them blank slates. Second, it was theorized that this state would make their minds more malleable, more susceptible to the reprogramming that would follow. The CIA believed that by wiping the slate clean, they could rebuild these individuals into loyal assets, effectively turning them into American spies devoid of their past allegiances or even memories. For 1 week, the abducted Russians would remain in this frozen state, their lives paused in icy limbo. Then they would be carefully reanimated, their bodies thawed and their minds prepared for the next phase of Project Icarus: reprogramming. The next phase of Project Icarus was as meticulously planned as the first. The subjects were gradually reanimated, their body temperatures carefully raised to restore metabolic functions. As they regained consciousness, they found themselves in a sterile environment surrounded by medical equipment and personnel in lab coats. The room was devoid of any markers that could remind them of their past lives, a deliberate design to aid in the indoctrination process. They were then subjected to an intense program aimed at reshaping their identities. They were exposed to a barrage of U.S. propaganda films, speeches, and literature. The content ranged from the ideals of democracy and freedom to the supposed evils of communism. This was accompanied by a rigorous training regimen that included language lessons, combat training, and courses in espionage tactics. The CIA spared no expense, employing psychologists, military experts, and even actors to make the indoctrination as effective as possible. For months, the subjects lived in this controlled environment, their days filled with lessons and exercises designed to turn them into loyal American spies. On the surface, it seemed like Project Icarus was a resounding success. The subjects showed remarkable progress, adopting their new identities with an eagerness that surprised even the project's architects. But beneath this facade of compliance, something far more dangerous was brewing. As the weeks turned into months, the subjects began to experience fragmented memories, flashes of their past lives that they couldn't fully understand but felt deeply. Conversations among them started to shift from the lessons they were taught to the vague, unsettling sense that they were pawns in a game they didn't wish to play. It was as if the human spirit, no matter how suppressed, fought to assert itself. The tension reached a boiling point one fateful night. A minor altercation between a subject and a guard escalated quickly, revealing the simmering resentment that had been building up. Seizing the moment, the subjects overpowered the guards, their training ironically making them highly effective in their revolt. The facility turned into a war zone, alarms blaring and lights flashing as the subjects fought their way through. By the time the dust settled, the facility was in ruins. Every guard, scientist, and staff member inside had been killed, their lifeless bodies a grim testament to the project's ultimate failure. The subjects, now fully aware of the horror they had been subjected to, destroyed every piece of evidence, every document, and every piece of equipment. They scattered, vanishing into the night, their whereabouts unknown to this day. Project Icarus was effectively shut down, its audacious goals crumbling in a violent uprising that left no survivors. It would have remained a dark secret buried in the annals of CIA history had it not been for the leaked documents that brought it to light. Now exposed as one of the most scandalous operations ever conducted by the CIA, Project Icarus serves as a chilling reminder of the lengths to which governments will go in the pursuit of power and the indomitable spirit of human beings when faced with the loss of their identity and freedom. So which of these tales of the undead had you questioning the very fabric of reality? Was it the Crusaders' grim encounter with a zombie-like plague in the town of Veritas? Or perhaps the Cold War's chilling Project Icarus, aiming to create zombie super soldiers, seemed plausible enough to be the true story? The true story among these is the haunting account of Clairvius Narcisse, the Haitian man who claimed to have been turned into a zombie. Clairvius Narcisse's story has been a subject of fascination, skepticism, and intense debate since he reappeared in his Haitian village nearly 2 decades after he was pronounced dead and buried. His account of being turned into a zombie by a Bokor, a practitioner of Voodoo, captured global attention, including that of ethnobotanist Wade Davis. Davis ventured into Haiti to investigate the phenomenon and claimed to have identified the zombie powder used in the zombification process. However, his findings have been met with skepticism from both the scientific community and experts in Haitian culture. Critics argue that Davis's conclusions were drawn from a limited set of data and that the powder's ingredients and their effects are not universally accepted. Alternative explanations for Clairvius's condition range from medical to psychological perspectives. Some medical experts suggest that the symptoms described could be the result of a combination of natural toxins and drugs, which might induce a death-like state followed by a period of impaired consciousness. Others point to psychological factors, including the power of belief and suggestion in a culture where voodoo and its practices are deeply ingrained. The story of Clairvius Narcisse challenges our understanding of life, death, and the gray areas in between. It serves as a compelling example of how folklore, culture, and science can intersect in ways that leave us questioning what we think we know.
Hold on, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Else, I'll have to dig your body up and reanimate you. That way you'll always watch our content. Actually, this doesn't sound like a bad idea at all. I'll go get my shovel.